Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the CX Partner Knowledge Hour. Today, I'm really excited to have our partner, Mark Brody from Brohawk Solutions, with us today. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, Stephanie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. I
I
wish I was
love that you've
really
got the
chilling at the
beach.
beach.
I was just gonna say. We were having a
Well,
conversation today about the fact that they're already selling Starbucks pumpkin spice latte. I'm not ready for the fall.
yes, yes. My wife brought up showed me the announcement 2 nights ago and said 8:24. You know what that means? Tomorrow morning I need a PSL. I'm like, "Oy."
Well, I like your beach background because I want to hold on to summer a little longer.
Yes, yes. Excellent.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I love the conversation we're going to have today because I think it aligns really well with the experience that you have. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, Stephanie, thank you very much. Well, first of all, Stephanie and obviously the Procedure Flow team, thank you for including me in this series. I think it's anytime you can get some best practice sharing and some knowledge sharing. I mean, it's always a plus. So I've been in the call center world, contact center world. We called it call center way back in the day, but in the contact center world for about 34 years. And 5 years ago, this past Tuesday, I decided to form my own LLC. And I tell people all the time. My wife talked me out of the name I was going to name it, which was, "Hey, I know a guy." But no, it's not politically correct. I'm like, "Well, how's Brohawk Solutions?" She's like, "All right, that I can work with." And so I've been consulting, with small to mid-size uh, business clients for a little over for 5 years and 3 days now,
Mm,
and it's been a great journey. I get to talk to a lot of different organizations, throughout the year. I do some work for a couple of organizations, from a consulting standpoint, and then I also work with organizations that are looking to figure out how to do things better.
yeah.
One of the items in my background that I'm really proud of is company I worked for asked me to go ahead and to operationalize a new line of business. I said, all right, we can do that. So after we got off the ground, we went from one client to over 50 clients in just over 3.5 4 years. But while that part was pretty cool, we had some good ramp going on in that industry. But we had 3 years consecutive of zero
Wow.
percent turnover rate with this business operation.
Amazing.
And the way we did that was, we created a culture within this team of collaboration and
Hmm.
listening to people and getting their input into what some of the pain points that they were experiencing, what our customers were experiencing, and how can we go ahead and improve that so that it created a much better customer experience. And that's really the foundations of where I like to work with clients, with customers, with other consultants, quite honestly, where we can go ahead and align people, processes, and technology to create a better
Hmm.
agent experience, which
Yeah.
ultimately leads to that better customer experience. I don't really like talking about the customer experience as much because I don't want that to be the goal of what we're trying to fix, because as everybody who's involved with procedure flow knows, if you can't get the agent what they need at the time that they need it, that call is going to go south really really quick. So
Exactly. Yeah. I love what you said there because I think, one thing I always think about is a happy agent equals a happy customer. And it really
yep.
starts with the agent. So, how can you make their experience more positive? How can you help them be more productive?
Yep.
Because the more productive they are, the more comfortable they are, and the happier they are in their role and in the
Hmm.
processes that they have to follow. The customer that interacts with them will also feel that, and that will make their experience a much more positive as well.
Yes, yes. I hearken it back to the old saying. for us old married guys, happy wife, happy life,
Yeah.
so I try and bring that into the operational arena, make your agents happy, and they're gonna make your customers happy. So
Exactly. Well, today, I think that dovetails really well with what we want to talk about today. I think the focus is really around how can we help contact centers empower their agents so that they can reach higher productivity levels. And there's a lot of
excellent.
different ways to tackle that, but I think one that has kind of taken the world by storm quite a bit in the last few months has been this whole conversation around AI and how that's
Hmm.
evolving customer expectations. There's been so much more that's been entering in terms of automating processes, automating, the first entry points of a customer's journey.
Hmm.
And then how does that impact an agent as well by the time a customer reaches that agent? So I'd love for you to talk to me a little bit about what do you think the impact is on the call center and specifically the agent when it comes to AI?
you know you touched on something that's really important, that I think there's some organizations that don't focus on this, and that's the whole IVR experience, because that's where a lot of the AI technology and bots and routing and everything. If you keep a customer in there for 2, 3, 4, 15 minutes, whatever the case may be, trying to get them to self-serve so they don't route to an agent, and it's a
Mhm.
poor experience, conceptually, is that going to be a really good customer interaction that the customer is going to have with the agent? Probably not. And
Right.
so I think it in order to leverage AI in the contact center most effectively, you have to figure out a strategy, with that. Why are you bringing the AI into your call center, into your contact center, and what is the lift, and what's going to, how is that AI process going to be supported? Remember, I go back to people, processes, and technology. Okay,
Mhm.
if the agents aren't understanding the process that the customer has to go through to get to them, it's going to create a much more difficult conversation,
Right.
when that customer reaches their ear. So I think that's one piece of it. The other piece is, if your knowledge management system, quite honestly, is not up to date, and your agents know it, and they have an agent assist tool that's sitting on the side of their screen telling them what they need to say or how to say it, or making recommendations, and they're like, no, it's going to be noise that they're
Mhm.
just going to ignore, and they're not going to pay attention to it. um, but if it's something that's up to date, and it's something that adds value to the conversation, then they're going to
Right.
use it on every single interaction, regardless if it's voice, chat, email.
Mhm.
Heck, if they got carrier pigeons in your call center, contact center, I mean, however you need to interact with your customers. And so it's real important that, having that strategy first,
Mhm.
um, and understanding the why behind you're even bringing in this technology, is something that's, I would say, key to making your migration into, or dipping your toe into AI, whatever flavor of AI it is. It's going to make that a more successful transition. So
I agree. And I think you mentioned something that's interesting in there because um, when you introduce AI at that beginning entry point, right? So a customer
mhm.
probably talk to the chatbot, try to self-serve themselves,
Yep.
but maybe they weren't able to get to the right information, and so they had to be
Mhm.
prompted to talk to an agent. The agent
Mhm.
is only as good as the knowledge that's put in front of them, right?
Yes.
And I think that that is key when you think about the experience that you want to create. There's only so much that an agent can memorize from their
Hmm.
training, and especially new agents. They're probably handling these complex calls for the very first time. You cannot expect them to know exactly what happened, especially if they didn't go through that particular instance of a process during their training session.
Stephanie, I love what you just hit on right there, because agents today versus 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago. Shoot, even using a manual dial phone when I first started. Yeah, I'm that many years old. So I think that the type of interactions that people were having back in the day were a lot more transactional. And when you
Hmm.
touched on the complexity of the interaction that agents are expected to handle, and organizations themselves are expected to go ahead and reduce the amount of training hours that's being put into getting an agent to proficiency, you have a perfect storm for disaster because you're expecting your agents, your frontline agents, your brand ambassadors to go ahead and make great decisions, great recommendations to your customers, to make the customer feel valued, et cetera. I could just go on and on and on here. But if you're not equipping them with the right knowledge in order to help them be successful, and you're not giving them the right tools from the point of onboarding all the way through nesting, all the way through taking that first call, you're setting yourself up for failure, and you're setting your customers up for failure. You're going to increase your turnover rates, and you're going to be on a hamster wheel.
I think when we were having the conversation before we came onto this call, you talked a little bit
Mhm,
about the work that you do with JD Power, and I thought some of the
mhm.
one of the insights from this year's survey I thought was fascinating. If you want to share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great segue. I so I am in the JD Power ecosystem, and so I am a certified evaluator for JD Power, and I have been for the last almost 4 years now. And each as part of their the customer service practice, they take a look at what the drivers of CSAT are. And this year, the highest experiential driver for customer satisfaction was the knowledge of the representative. And this is the first time it's taken over that number one spot, from my recollection. When you listen to calls, people are having to put customers on hold. They're having to transfer. They're having to do all these other things during a call, and the root cause of that is the agent that customer is speaking to just doesn't have the knowledge of
Mm.
how to get to a solution for that customer. They could be newer. They may not have experienced a certain situation before. There could have been a marketing rollout, as an example, that didn't get communicated all the way down to the contact center, and all of a sudden, again, it's a perfect storm for disaster.
Yeah.
If you don't have the knowledge, you can't have a good agent experience because the customer's going to be telling, no, you're wrong, and the agent's like, no, I'm right, it's right here.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's changed. And that's honestly centers that rely on tribal knowledge instead of having an integrated and robust knowledge management system, or knowledge management process, not necessarily a system, but a process.
Hmm.
um, you're going to have much lower customer satisfaction. The customer effort is going to be much higher.
Exactly. And I feel a lot for the trainers out there because there's so much change there. And as you said, they have to compress so much information because they're also
Hmm.
under pressure to shorten the training time, which is already a challenge when you're trying to train on culture, train on products, train on so many systems that agents are going to have to go through. I'd love to
Yeah.
hear like how do you think trainers can reevaluate their programs to help improve that productivity?
You know, I think now trainers are getting used to the asks of them. And by that, I mean they're going to have to get a better product out to the floor faster, more efficiently, and with a higher skill set. One, are they aligned with the folks coming into the organization or into that department? So you're leveling up on your skill set even coming in the door. But if you're not, because it's a tough market from a hiring
Mm,
standpoint these days, if you're not able to, if you're in a contact center that's not paying, 25 bucks an hour, 25 to 30 bucks an hour, for a frontline agent, then you're going to get what you're. I mean, nothing against lower paid agents, but the motivation and the skill set is a little bit different, in a
yeah,
lot of cases, and that's what trainers have to work with oftentimes. it's
yeah,
it's somebody that isn't as loyal to the organization. They don't understand if the organization is going to be loyal to them.
yeah,
So to your culture point, that's the first obstacle that trainers have to get over. And then it's, how do you compress, like you said, all of this, like, I'm going to date myself again here, binders and binders and binders of information into a consumable format.
hmm,
And that's one of the things, honestly, that I love about procedure flow, is the fact that you have all of these different call scenarios that can be developed. And instead of having the agent memorize those binders and binders and binders, the trainer can then focus more on soft skills and how to navigate through the process or the systems, rather than trying to, walk, chew gum, tie your shoes, brush your hair, brush your teeth all at the same time.
yeah,
It's an impossible task. And so again, that's one of the things that I really love about procedure flow, is it simplifies the training process so
yeah.
that you can get agents proficient and on the phones or on email or on chat, whatever it may be, faster and with higher quality. And I know I'm preaching to the choir on that, but it's so true, and I've seen it happen before.
And one thing that I find interesting about that is I think the way we learn is also changing, right? We
Hmm.
now live, when I think about, folks that are entering in the contact center, like you said, a lot of the time it could be, students that are working part-time. I know that was my case. That's how I entered
Hmm.
in the contact center. It was my way to pay through school. And
Yep.
the way now that the different generations that are walking into the contact center, they're so used to living in the world of instant answers. They're used to living in
Hmm.
the world of TikTok where information is quick, it's accessible, it's
Yep.
highly visual. And I think to your point, you get into a contact center and you're being handed a binder or you're being handed knowledge bases with a lot of heavy text.
Hmm.
It adds friction to that agent experience as well, and their ability
Yes.
to process and retain information.
Stephanie, I love a word that you just used, or a phrase that you used when you were talking about agent friction. Because in the CX space, people talk about way too often. You hear it on, out here in posts and everything, customer friction.
Hmm.
Well, what causes customer friction? Agent friction, you
Yeah,
know, in a lot of cases. And it's because they're getting, the agent isn't properly equipped to be able to serve that customer or meet that customer's expectations in the way that they expect to be met. And whether that's a diamond, the platinum, the golden rule, whatever the rule is, it's a medal of some sort, I'm sure. If you can reduce that agent friction, one, you're going to have a lot more confident agent, and that agent is going to be better equipped to solve the problem faster. And going back to JD Power, one of the, I would say it's one of the top five that I see is time to resolution. And how many
hmm,
calls is it taking you to go ahead and, for a customer to resolve their reason for calling the first time? First call resolution, next steps, all this stuff that's
yeah.
so mission critical on a call. And if you're able to equip an agent to be able to address all of that right off the bat, it's a win-win situation for you.
Absolutely. And an interesting thing you talked about in terms of time to resolution, I think a big
Mhm.
component in there that's also a challenge is change management, especially if an
Yes.
agent is working in a highly regulated industry like banking or
Mhm.
insurance, where a lot of processes change due to either legislation or whatever is happening.
Yep.
How are you equipping the agents to have access to the most accurate information and latest information if you don't
Mhm.
have processes in place to make those changes quickly and efficiently?
I'm going to go back to that time when I led a team or led a group that had 0% turnover rate for three
Hmm.
consecutive years. One of the things that I did is first hired for culture. And while it looks really cool that I can talk about, that 0% turnover rate, it was really making the right hire when it
Hmm.
came to that frontline manager that really dealt with the day-to-day stuff. That was the first component. And then the next component, of that was to go ahead as we developed our systems and our processes. I had a core group of four people that were going to be my first four frontline agents, and they were instrumental in testing, telling me what you need, what format do you need it in, what's going to make your job easier when you get somebody on the phone. How
Hmm.
does it need to appear to you? Is this more cumbersome? Is this less cumbersome? And so, including your frontline folks, giving them a seat at the table when you're developing processes, when you're developing, systems or knowledge, what's going to be the most consumable format for people to be successful. And I think that's so critical when it comes to change management, because it's easy for folks in a leadership position that may be two, three, four, however many levels removed, and say, "Hey, we're going to bring in this system, and it's going to do everything from julienne fries to slicing bread and all this other stuff it's going to do." But if it doesn't work for the frontline agents, you're gonna fail. And
Yeah.
so it's so important to listen to the voice of the employee every step of the way as far as what their friction points are. I may use agent friction more often, Stephanie. I love the way you put that before, but it's so true. Change management fails because there isn't synergy between your front lines to the different parts of the organization that are also going to be using whatever tool or resource or whatever that you're going to be bringing into the organization. You got to
Yeah.
make sure that everybody has reputation, because then you can develop champions within those larger teams that can really say, yeah, this really is, and I've seen it, julienne fries, and I saw the ginsu tube sliced through a tin can, and it
Yeah.
does all the things that senior leadership is saying it's going to do. It's so important to have those champions involved in the development process, in the pre-rollout process, because then, as a parent, my boys, my kids never listen to me. But if they were talking to each other, they would listen to each other. In school, who did you listen to? Did you listen to your parents?
No.
You listen to your peers. That's where you got all the good stuff. That's the stuff that your parents didn't want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
And so, that I think that's so key, is to have those champions as part of your change management process that are going to change agents on the
Yeah.
front lines. So,
You know what? I think a lot about there's there's a lot of talk in the CX world and in
mhm,
marketing too about the voice of the customer. But I
yep.
but what you just talked about is also the voice of the agent. Where is that? There needs to be more initiatives around what is their experience? What are they struggling with? And, we go back to the loyalty and building that engagement. if
Mhm,
if they are being heard on the challenges that they have, whether it's access to knowledge, whether it's whatever else is happening within the organization, that's also
mhm,
another way to foster loyalty.
yep.
Because they just want to be heard, right? And they just want to know that somebody is listening and is is acting on some of those concerns, because I don't think anyone goes into a job thinking I don't want to do a good job. Everybody wants to do a good job. Everybody wants to be successful. But as we
Yes.
said earlier, you're only as successful as the tools that are being provided to you.
I was watching a video of a coach, and this happened to be Michael Irvin. Was out at University of Colorado, and he was talking to these D1 athletes. I mean, big guys, really talented folks, or as talented as that particular team is. I'm a Kansas guy, so I got to give them a hard time now. So, but one of the things that really resonated with me on this video that I was watching is you can bring all the skill to the game,
Mhm,
but if you don't bring the will to the
mm,
game, you're going to fail. Bring that back to the contact center. You could be a very talented communicator, okay? But if you don't believe in what it is that you're communicating about, the products,
mhm,
the services, the service after the sale, the knowledge that, hey, if you hand this off to somebody else in another department, that it's going to get taken care of the way that it needs to be, then it doesn't matter how much skill you have, your will is down. And I'm going to go find somebody else that is going to invest in me as my voice, and what I'm telling them is important. So the voice of the agent is so critical. I mean, it's the foundation for success.
yeah.
I put it right up there with knowledge. If you're not listening to what your frontline folks are telling you, regardless of what part of the organization you're in, you're missing it.
Yeah, exactly. I love, we've been talking a lot about the voice of the customer and the experience you have in terms of advising and consulting other contact centers
Mhm.
on how they can improve their operations. I'd love to hear what's been maybe a customer success story that you've had where they've implemented some tools, and what were they able to accomplish?
This is actually one of the first, and I'm not going to give the name of the customer. Uh, I'd like them to tell their story at some point in time, from their lens. But from my lens, they had a problem, where they had a singular day of the year that basically volume came in at 10x
Wow.
what it normally did, and it was across a couple of different parts of the organization. And so they knew that they needed to go ahead, and it was an all hands on deck type of approach. So what they chose to do this one year was to go ahead and hey, let's go ahead and not just bring in folks internally, but let's go ahead and bring on some outsource assistants. And maybe we'll keep the outsourcers on, throughout the year, et cetera, et cetera. But specifically for this day, we need to bring on, whatever the number was, say 300 agents, like immediately,
Wow.
like within just a few weeks. Well, those agents were really being asked to do a task or two tasks. It wasn't, and they knew what the calls were going to be about. And so I recommended to the training and operational staff at this organization, who I've had a really great relationship with. I said, you want to get better? Or I mentioned that, hey, I had this tool out here, Procedure Flow, and this may help you reduce your training time by 50 to 75% and get your agents more proficient faster. Okay.
Mhm.
And like, well, we really don't see that happen. What tool out there is really going to make that happen? And so we did some introductions, and this is like normally about a 400 seat, contact center, a 400 or 500 seat contact center. And they did a trial in with probably one of the more complex flows. And the the speed to proficiency increased by, I want to say, like 80% with the
Wow.
first class, you know, and if I'm off on that percentage, it's not by much. And the training time they were able to reduce by, I believe, about 50%, but it gave them more time to work on systems and
Mm.
system proficiency and how to navigate and how to become more confident, how to help the agents become more confident on each call. So when they needed to roll this out to their BPOs in a very short period of time, they were seeing like basically a 2 or 3 week normal training process internally. They were able to get under a week, and I don't want to overstate it, but maybe just a couple of days,
Wow.
to go ahead and get new people on. And they had one particular situation I remember some folks telling me about, where their volume was even higher than anybody else they had, and so they were able to get folks from other parts of the organization trained within just a couple of hours because they already had the
Imagine.
system knowledge, you know
Yeah.
and it created success for them, for this particular day. And so they started sharing this out with the other parts of the organization, and it became very infectious for them to go ahead, and everybody was like, hey, how are you guys doing so much better than we are? And they started talking about evangelizing procedure flow internally, and the fact that you know it's not an agent assist, it's an agent navigation process at that time.
Hmm.
I know there's been a lot of enhancements to the platform, but this is 4 years ago or something like that. And
Wow.
they've seen the 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 platform as a part of um, as a part of their normal process to go ahead and train people now, because it's been such an impactful tool and resource for them. And it also helped them think smarter, not just about what the end result was, which was getting the agent on, but how do we look at knowledge differently? You know,
Hmm.
if there's something wrong, how do we go ahead and improve the knowledge base, or the knowledge that's out there that's being shared? How do we improve it quickly? So they created some champions. They created some folks internally that really helped them get their organization from hey, this is the way we've always done it, to let's rethink how we're doing things in the future, starting today. And let's go ahead and be more impactful for our agents so they can be more impactful for us. So
Yeah. You know what? I love what you said there, that this company completely changed the way they looked at knowledge, because
mhm,
that's really the big transformational piece, right? We talked about giving
yep,
your agents the right knowledge so that they can serve customers. We talked about making sure that it's a company-wide initiative in terms of maintaining that knowledge,
yep,
implementing the right processes in terms of change management. Looks like this company really was able to implement those great pillars of, people, processes, and technology, bringing that all together to create success. Because a one-day campaign, like the volumes that they were getting, it takes
yep.
huge undertaking.
Well, and it helped them prepare when they were doing an entire CRM migration, because that was a 6 month process that required them to basically overhaul, how they were taking calls and what they were able to do or not do, and be, having a tool out here in their ecosystem like Procedure Flow made it a lot more simple for the departments that actually adopted it. And I would say 80 to 90% of the departments adopted it and and had a successful transition to migration experience as a result.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Mark,
Yeah.
we talked about some major components of agent productivity around training, around
Hmm.
knowledge, around change management, but also the voice of the agent, getting them
Hmm.
to play a role. Is there anything else that you think contact centers should also consider when they're thinking about boosting their agents' productivity?
Yeah. One thing, and don't focus on the productivity, focus on the behaviors.
Mhm.
So too often and this is just Mark's opinion, and I'm going to get up on a soapbox for a minute. Please oblige me. organizations focus too much on key performance indicators, KPIs, and that's a result of all those are the results of what's occurred. How the calls were handled, first call resolution, et cetera, et cetera. Organizations, I think, need to be more focused on KBIs, key behavioral indicators, or KBAs, key behavioral attributes, that are the things that the agents are doing, or the organization is doing, or asking their frontline agents to do on a daily basis, that are producing the outcomes that are occurring. So, and those KBIs or KBAs, whatever the terminology that you want to use, can also be look at how you're training your customers to act and react. So we focus a lot on automation internally, but tools like Procedure Flow can make the customer experience from a self-serve standpoint much more impactful also. And so look at the behaviors and the journeys that your agents and your customers are going through, and where are the pain points, where are people getting stuck, and address the behaviors and what you're asking people to do, not focused on what the end results are. The end results will take care of themselves. But if you're not focused on the behaviors and how you're getting to the results, in my opinion, you're missing the boat. It's not about the journey from Austin to Toronto. Okay, I'm starting here and my destination is to get to Toronto. However, what am I missing in between? I can go see, Dallas or Kansas City. I can go see a Jayhawks basketball game or something like that. Or I can go to Chicago and see experiences along the way that make the entire journey more meaningful and more impactful. And I say that for bring it back to the contact center. It's a journey that's going to make the more impactful, agent experience, which is going to drive that customer experience. That's all I got to say about that.
I love what you said around the behaviors or the attributes, because it's so true when you think about when you're so focused on the KPIs like AHT or whatnot, agents pick up the wrong behaviors too, just to be able to meet their numbers. Like I remember when I was an agent, I would try to skip a couple of things because I know I'm on the clock and I got to keep things moving, and there's more calls in the queue, and I'm going to get told if something, whatnot. And so you're by over indexing on the KPIs, actually creating a culture of bad behavior in some ways, which can actually be detrimental to the organization, because it will increase your callbacks. It will, create compliance nightmares depending on the industry that you're in. So I like that, shifting the focus on the behavior as being a metric for success.
I stopped talking about AHT like at least 10 to 12 years ago, at least, because it was creating the wrong behaviors. Why are AHT metrics put in place? Because it's a financial metric. It's a financial driver in a contact center. If who owns the financial driver? Well, your CFO, your operational leaders, and really your WFM folks, because they're the ones that are telling you how many agents that you're going to need if your AHT is this. Well, take that back a step, and when I stopped talking about AHT and focused more on how the conversations were going and were we hitting on all the things that we needed to hit, my AHT actually dropped by 15 seconds.
Wow.
Okay, because we stopped talking about it. We focused more on what were the behaviors that needed to be focused on. And while I can take credit because of the role that I had in the organization, again, it goes back to, does that vision make it down throughout the parts of the organization that it's impacting, and everybody along this part of the organization saw it, believed it, internalized it, and they were focused more on the result, not the result, the behaviors that they were taking, not the results.
Yeah.
So,
And you know what? That's so important. I think
yep.
that's the piece because again, AHT is a financial metric, but if you focus on the behavior, I think another piece that you're tackling there is the consistent customer experience. No matter which
Yes,
agent you call, you know that the customer is going to have a consistent experience, consistency in the process, and consistent in the outcome of that call, which
exactly.
provides
And that's
CSAT as well.
and that's where the procedure flow platform really comes in, because you're helping contact center organizations create behaviors or
Mhm.
align behaviors that are focused on outcomes, that are focused on resolution, and not just on the transactional piece of the call.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Mark, I feel like you and I can talk for hours. I love our
yes.
conversations, but I do want to be mindful of your time. So please tell our listeners, where can people learn more about you and where can they find you?
Oh man. Well, first of all, Stephanie, thank you. This has been a great opportunity. I'm very humbled um, to be your guest on this webinar. So I have my own contacts consulting. It's called Brohawk Solutions. So you can either go to my website, brohawksolutions.com. You can email me at mark@brohawksolutions.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you just want to chat, or I have a YouTube channel out there that I do some podcasting myself, some coffee talk with Brohawk, and I know I've had some folks from Procedure Flow on, as well. We got some great episodes on the YouTube channel from Procedure Flow. I think Mike is on there, and among others, Jamie I know is on there. And so just connect with me, and if you're ever in Austin, I'll buy you some barbecue and an adult beverage. How's that?
That sounds amazing. I can't wait to make it out in Austin. And I know you have a conference coming up as well for the Austin Contact Center Alliance.
Yes,
So that
yes. And Procedure Flow is one of our sponsors for the conference, second year in a row, and we're really, on behalf of ACCA, we're really appreciative of all the support that Procedure Flow has provided to ACCA, and it's going to be on September 14th, and we're looking forward to seeing folks there as well.
Yeah, no, we're excited. I think we can geek out about all contact center things all day, every day.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
our conversations could go hours upon hours.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mark. And please connect with Mark on LinkedIn or on the website, and definitely check out the Coffee Talks on YouTube. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Hey, thank you much, Stephanie. Have a great day now.
You too.